but just a real man. It's a normal guy.
Remembering Reverend Jesse Jackson, his family, politicians, and ordinary Chicagoans are sharing their stories about his life and impact on the city, the nation, and the world.
The civil rights icon died just before 2 o'clock this morning, surrounded by family, and people have been gathering at Rainbow Push Coalition headquarters to honor and remember Reverend Jackson.
We began our coverage tonight with a look back at his legendary life. His foundation as a civil rights champion began with his upbringing in South Carolina. Born in the segregated town of Greenville, his mother, Helen Burns, was a high school student at the time. Jesse was taught to ride in the back of the bus. He did well in school and was accepted to the University of Illinois on a football scholarship. But on a visit back home to South Carolina, he joined a demonstration of black students at the whites-only public library.
Several of my classmates and I, we were arrested trying to use a public library in Greenville, South Carolina. We could not buy ice cream in the front door at Howard Johnson.
Jackson transferred to North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University in Greensboro and found his focus in the civil rights movement.
I am somebody. I may be poor, but I am somebody.
In 1965, Jackson marched with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in the Alabama marches from Selma to Montgomery, the state capital.
Against that setting, he dreamed of a day we be judged by character, not condemned by color.
Jackson's passion impressed Dr. King, although their relationship was not always smooth. Jackson was appointed director of Operation Breadbasket in Chicago, the economic arm of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. The purpose, to create jobs for African Americans and support black-owned businesses. Jesse Jackson was with Dr. King in Memphis, Tennessee on April 4th, 1968, when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated.
Shot, killed in cold blood. All I can remember is some voice saying, one bullet cannot kill a movement. We must keep going.
2 months later, in June, Jackson was ordained a minister. 1971, he founded Operation Push, People United to Save Humanity, later becoming the Rainbow Push Coalition. Based on Chicago's South Side, it would become a powerful political and religious force, urging economic development and opportunity for Black Americans and racial diversity in hiring and management, using the muscle of boycotts against businesses that stood in the way of its efforts. Coca-Cola was a target, Anheuser-Busch, Burger King, Nike, and CBS Television, among others. The man who demanded respect from giant corporations also had a humorous side and would make people laugh on Saturday Night Live. His rendition of a Dr. Seuss classic in his trademark speaking style is iconic.
I do not like them here or there. I do not like them anywhere. I do not like green eggs and ham.
But over decades, Reverend Jesse Jackson was growing in political stature and his influence on international matters. He traveled to Syria in 1983 to secure the release of a captured American Navy pilot. He helped to negotiate the release of 22 Americans being held in Cuba by Fidel Castro. His private diplomacy found success over the years, as well as his growing political strength. In 1984, Reverend Jackson made his first run for President of the United States.
This is not a black campaign. It's a campaign through the eyes of the hurt and the rejected.
But his primary campaign took a hit when he used derogatory terms for Jewish people in New York City in a private conversation that became public. He would run for president again in 1988, coming in second in the Democratic primary. Reverend Jackson's own goal of leading the nation from the Oval Office would not happen, but ABC7 was with Reverend Jackson in Denver in 2008.
So let us agree that patriotism has no party. I love this country, and so do you.
The night Barack Obama accepted the Democratic Party's nomination for president.
I practiced not crying tonight. I was going to be real tough because I had a lot of emotions.
Tears would fill Reverend Jackson's eyes 3 months later, watching here in Chicago as America elected its first black president.
We went from the balcony in Memphis, Tennessee, where Dr. King was killed, balcony at the White House in Washington, President Barack Obama could wave it over the Potomac River. In 40 years, we came to the wilderness. In 40 years, we went from the balcony to the balcony, using the effective vote and building coalitions.
It was late 2017 when Reverend Jackson announced he had been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, the same condition that took his father's life. The Reverend's Rainbow Push Coalition now says that years later, doctors instead diagnosed him with PSP, or progressive supranuclear palsy. But it didn't slow his quest for civil rights, equality, and protesting the deadly shooting of Laquan McDonald.
We need a sense of fairness and justice applies to all.
In July of 2023, Reverend Jackson stepped down as the head of the Rainbow Push Coalition. And in July of 2025, the National Bar Association honored him with a Lifetime Achievement Award. The Reverend Jesse Jackson,
Keep hope alive.
leaving large footprints for the journey that remains.
On tomorrow night and beyond. Keep hope alive. I love you very much.
Reverend Jackson's family today remembering their father as a pioneering force in the civil rights movement, reminding all people of all races they are somebody. Karen Jordan has that part of the story tonight.
No, you don't even have on a shirt and tie. You don't even have on a...
Santita Jackson, the eldest of Jesse Jackson's children, says at his core he was a man of faith, but also a doting father who empowered her to follow her dreams.
And my father wanted to be in our lives. He wanted to be present for us. That was a great present. He said, the greatest present I can give you is my presence. And so there was never a day in my life where I didn't speak with him.
Jesse Jackson Jr. saying it's hard to summarize all of the contributions his father made to society in fighting for the underdog. He was with Jackson early this morning as the 84-year-old took his last breath following a lengthy battle with progressive supranuclear palsy, a condition similar to Parkinson's disease.
He had stopped eating about 12 days ago, and the last 3 or so days I had been counting down because he can only go so long without liquids and water. And we knew that the end was coming, that it was near.
Son Jonathan Jackson, a congressman, says initially he didn't aspire to hold a public office, but was influenced by his father's tireless fight for humanitarian issues.
I've had my father for 60 years in a very dangerous business. We've had death threats and bomb threats and hotel rooms that were set on fire. And through it all, God's been merciful.
Karen Jordan, ABC7 Eyewitness News.
Reverend Jackson's impact is reflected in the widespread tributes that have been pouring in all day. As our Craig Wall reports, Jackson was much more than a civil rights icon. He was a political inspiration for many.
This is not a black campaign.
When Jesse Jackson launched his 1984 presidential run, he called it a campaign through the eyes of the hurt. His 1988 bid brought together a political coalition that was transformative in the Democratic Party.
So if you can think of the civil rights movement being a bridge and then a continuation thereafter on this vision of transformative politics, Jesse Jackson was a huge leader in that regard.
Congressman Jesus Chuy Garcia was a Jackson delegate in both campaigns. He reflected on how Jackson set the stage for a broad coalition that transcended race and inspired future progressive politicians.
Because I'm from Chicago, I used to listen to the Saturday morning broadcasts of Operation Breadbasket and then Operation Push. So I was a keen observer, listener of Reverend Jackson.
Years later, around 2006, William Hall, now the 6th Ward alderman, went from a push volunteer to Reverend Jackson's body person, traveling around the country and the world with him for about 10 years.
Reverend was a wise man beyond his own existence.
Hall viewed Jackson as much more than an employer.
Fatherly.
He saw him as a father figure who brought out the best in him.
He knew how to challenge me without criticizing me, without going over my mistakes. I spent more time with him than my own dad.
Craig Wall, ABC7 Eyewitness News.
Craig, thank you for that report. Our coverage tonight of the iconic Reverend Jesse Jackson will continue later on in this broadcast. We'll talk about his legacy and his impact.
And also talk about how he impacted elections by getting out the vote, an important part of his legacy as well. Greg, another nice day.
It is, although we are tracking some rain showers, but more of a warm up and perhaps even some storms in February. Yes, that's coming up after the break.
While no official cause of death has been released, the Jackson family has been public about Reverend Jackson's health struggles in recent years.
He had been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, but late last year, doctors changed his diagnosis to progressive supranuclear palsy. Joining us tonight live on our streaming show is Dr. Deborah Hall, a neurologist at Rush University Medical Center. And we thank you for joining us on this day as we talk about an icon in the civil rights movement. Thank you so much. Can you talk about the supranuclear palsy, what it is, doctor?
Sure. Progressive supranuclear palsy is a brain disease that typically occurs later in life. The average age of onset is mid-60s. And this disease primarily affects movement, so the ability of people to move normally. The disease is caused by a protein that builds up within the brain cells, and this disease does progress over time. Usually it gets worse and worse until the end of life.
We knew that Reverend Jackson had Parkinson's. He was diagnosed with that some years ago. Are these similar in their symptoms? Are they related in some ways?
Many patients with progressive supranuclear palsy are initially diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, or what we call Parkinsonism. And Parkinsonism is when someone has some features that we would see in Parkinson's disease, but we can't make a clear diagnosis. PSP, or progressive supranuclear palsy, is less common than Parkinson's disease. So when somebody shows up with tremors, slowness of movement, problems with their walking, the most likely diagnosis is going to be Parkinson's disease. It will typically take an additional 3 to 5 years for patients to develop those additional symptoms or signs that we see in PSP. And those are problems with the eye movements, early falls, and sometimes issues with memory or thinking.
So Dr. Hall,
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. You said.
I was going to say, when those additional signs appear, it will be clear to the neurologist treating the patient that they're not dealing with regular Parkinson's disease, but they're dealing with one of these atypical Parkinson's syndromes.
So I was going to ask you about his father passed away from Parkinson's disease. Is there some type of genetic and DNA concerns for his children since he is passing away and this was a disease that he was suffering from?
This is not clearly a genetic disease. So most patients that we see in the clinic have no family history of progressive supranuclear palsy or Parkinson's disease. However, I was involved in an NIH study several years ago, and when we saw our patients with PSP, we did see many of them report that there was Parkinson's disease in the family. So although we haven't discovered all of the genes that may be associated with PSP or progressive supranuclear palsy, it is possible in the future we will understand there is some risk in families of patients who already have it.
And Dr. Hall, how do you treat patients with both of these diseases? Are there similar treatments? Reverend Jackson lived for some time with Parkinson's and was living a normal, healthy life.
Many of the medications we use for Parkinson's disease, we will also try in patients with progressive supranuclear palsy. And frequently those medications are going to be to deliver dopamine or medicines that increase dopamine in the brain. Dopamine will allow patients to move better. So both of these diseases will cause patients to slow down, have problems with their walking, and when you give back dopamine, some of those symptoms will improve. So many of our patients will have improvement on dopamine, and it typically is the type of medication that we'll try. I do want to add that although we don't have a cure or a way to slow down progressive supranuclear palsy with medications, there is a lot of research going on here, even here in Chicago, looking for compounds or other medications that may slow the disease down. So hopefully within the next 5 to 10 years, we will have hope for families and patients.
Hope is always a good thing, and when it happens to a global figure, that always raises awareness and people learn a lot more about it. So thank you for spending part of your evening with us and sharing insight on this disease. Dr. Hall, we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Well, coming up, our coverage of the Reverend Jackson continues. Ahead, how his neighbors are remembering their friend. And we're also going to check on the weather. Some rain heading into the area tonight. Your AccuWeather forecast. Greg's here is next. Royal Sonesta, downtown Chicago River Cam. Another nice day.
I know.
Remember, they were talking 60s tomorrow.
Yeah, and I think like a record might be 70 tomorrow, but could we break another record?
We're close. I'll tell you what, I'm 2 buttons down. If we're at 70. I'm gonna have to lose another one here.
I'm gonna hold you to that. Come summer, you guys not gonna have a shirt on.
Oh!
Yeah, who knows what's gonna happen when we get to 85?
It's a family show now.
That's true. This is a good point.
I just noticed in the preview cam, I'm like, maybe 2 buttons was too much, but now you know what? I'm going with it. 52 degrees our current temperature. We are mostly cloudy, and it feels more like a spring or almost summer day because we're tracking rain showers on the radar and not snow showers. Right now, again, 53 mostly cloudy degrees. Temperatures generally in that upper 40 to lower 50 degree range, and here are those rain showers. Right now out in DuPage County, northern Will County, portions of Kane County, down towards Morris County and Grundy County too. A couple little waves of rainfall, and just by eyeballing this, it looks like it's about a tenth to highest end, like a quarter of an inch of rainfall during the overnight hours here for us. Again, the heaviest rain, if you want to call it that, is out in central and northern portions of DuPage County. So as you start getting up towards like the Wheaton area, you're seeing those heavier rain showers just off on the eastern side of Naperville. So out as you start heading towards spots like Woodridge, seeing some heavier rainfall at this point. Elmhurst, Hinsdale, as this starts to continue out off to the east and north, and eventually into Chicago with those rain showers too. So again, we got that initial leading wave, then another secondary wave back there, and then some scattered rain showers that will go for the overnight hours. So let's track those. Again, getting that first little push through, here's that second push, and again, maybe a shower or two during the overnight hours. And I think there could actually be some increase in coverage early on our Wednesday, but most of that is out by the Wednesday morning drive. So don't be surprised if you look outside, there's raindrops on the car windshield, or there's raindrops across the driveway, the roadways, the sidewalks. It will be a bit wet to start off tomorrow, but I don't think actively raining. Then we clear out our skies, and well, as Cheryl mentioned, a lot of 60s out there, possibly even some 70-degree temperatures as you head along and south of Interstate 80. Wednesday, the sun will be back in a way that it was not out in today's forecast. Then we have a little bit of time with some cloud cover again early on Thursday, and Thursday afternoon may feature showers and thunder showers. To our south, there is a slight risk of severe weather. We're in a marginal risk, just the southern fringe of our viewing area. Slight risk is for spots like Louisville, Kentucky, and areas that are south into Tennessee. Some of those storms, damaging wind, tornadoes, again, mainly south of our area, but we do have to watch these storms as we get into that 7-8 o'clock time frame on Thursday night. Some of those evening storms could be on the stronger to severe side of things. Feels weird talking about that in February, but here we are as that low continues to pivot on through. So tonight, our lows basically where our temperatures are now. Tomorrow afternoon, our high temps in the mid to upper 60s. It will be a windy day tomorrow. Fire danger will also be high tomorrow because you're just not supposed to be in this temperature range with this dry of a ground this time of year, and wind gusts may be up to 40 or 45 miles per hour. We do cool down as we roll into next week, early next week, but that is temporary. I think above normal temperatures are back starting at the middle of next week.
Okay.
So it's a very short winter. I
Spring,
guess pop in.
it's a spring fling. We like it. A fling is nice.
Normal's going to feel okay after that stretch.
Right.
Normal will feel great. 30 degrees will feel refreshing.
We'll be like,
after all the
wow.
now suddenly we're optimistic.
Pleasant.
To cool down.
We're
a couple
hopeful.
60s will do for
I know, right. All right. Thanks so much for that, Greg. We continue, everybody, looking back at the life and legacy of Reverend Jesse Jackson. Coming up next, his neighbors are remembering the icon as just a regular guy.
Reverend Jackson played a pivotal role in presidential politics in the U.S. After his presidential runs, Jackson was a driving force behind President Obama's time in the Oval Office. Here's Sarah Schulte with how Jackson helped voters get to the polls.
Jesse Jackson's impact on building a wide tent and getting people to the polls made it possible for black candidates here in Chicago and across the country to win in places other than black districts. Carol Moseley Braun was elected the first black woman to the U.S. Senate in 1992. She credits Jesse Jackson's presidential runs in the 1980s for giving her the ability to make history.
He broke barriers and gave people the notion that they could be what they wanted to be. And that was inspirational to me.
4 years before her 1992 victory, Braun was a volunteer for Jackson's 1988 presidential campaign. While he ran in 1984, it was his '88 campaign that opened the doors for generations of black politicians.
You began to see people elected in places like Delaware and in Utah and other places that you've not necessarily seen or would expect to see a black elected official.
Urban League President Karen Freeman Wilson and Moseley Braun say the doors opened because Jackson built a coalition to register people to vote and get them to the polls.
Jesse Jackson inspired people to participate in a process that many people have frankly given up on. And he gave them hope that they could participate and change the government, and they did.
They say Jackson wasn't just a champion for black people, he was more of a champion of the poor. Delmarie Cobb was Jackson's traveling press secretary for his 1988 campaign. She says he changed the Democratic Party.
Jackson pushed for the big tent because that was not the Democratic Party deciding that. That was Jackson deciding that.
And Jackson successfully changed Democratic Party rules at conventions from winner take all to a nominee getting a proportion of the delegates based on votes. The change led to Barack Obama's nomination 20 years later. Carol Moseley Braun, Father Michael Flager, and others say the best way to honor Jesse Jackson is to register more voters before the midterms and make sure they get to the polls. On the South Side, Sarah Schulte, ABC7 Eyewitness News.
Sarah, thank you. And those living near Reverend Jackson and his family also sharing their personal stories.
ABC7's Rob Hughes has those touching tributes.
We know the Reverend Jesse Jackson was a towering figure in the civil rights movement and American politics. But here in the Jackson Park Heights neighborhood on the South Side, he's known as a family man and a loving neighbor.
He's an iconic figure, but just a real man. It's a normal guy, man, normal neighbor who'd come by the house, eat barbecue with me when he wasn't supposed to eat barbecue.
Oliver Speller is Reverend Jackson's next door neighbor. He says the Jacksons are family.
His wife is like a grandmother to my children, always vigilant, always we're here for our celebrations, prom, graduation, and just, it's a family.
Speller and other neighbors describe Jackson as present, approachable, and generous with his time to friends and strangers alike, and a regular at the neighborhood's annual get-together.
He would come out, celebrate with the entire neighborhood. He would come out and sit with us, have barbecue, have a good time.
And as neighbors remember their friend, plenty of admirers from outside the neighborhood coming through to lay flowers at the end of the driveway to pay their respects and show support for the Jackson family.
I just hope he'll be remembered for a loving, kind, humanitarian person, a person that loved God first and loved us all.
Anita O'Neill sharing with us a picture from when she was 11 years old, meeting Reverend Jackson on a flight to Missouri.
I just remember smiling because my mother told me to smile.
O'Neill says when that picture was taken in the late 60s, Jackson was known as a protege to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and it wasn't until a few years later that she understood the significance of that chance encounter.
As I got older, like about 16, 17 years old, I realized, exactly who I had met that day. So it's a great honor. It's a great privilege to have known him.
Many of the people passing through here today speaking of the hope the Reverend Jesse Jackson instilled in them, the courage he gave, and the love he inspired, a legacy they say will live on. Reporting from South Shore, Rob Hughes, ABC7 Eyewitness News.
Beautiful tribute, Rob. Thank you for that report. Now, the Jackson family is expected to speak around 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. We will carry that news conference right here on ABC7. You will also be able to watch it on a website or wherever you stream. And we invite you to stay with us for continuing coverage on the passing of Reverend Jesse Jackson. We will be sharing more stories of his life, his legacy on our news app, on our website, or wherever you stream. And tonight on our 10 o'clock news over on ABC7, we will be interviewing the Dr. Freddie Haynes, who succeeded Reverend Jackson at the Operation Push, Rainbow Coalition, and we're going to be interviewing him. He is in New York being honored tonight, but he wanted to speak on his behalf, as well as Reverend Otis Moss at Trinity United Church of Christ, who his father and Reverend Jackson were best of friends with Dr. Martin Luther King. He was on that balcony that day when he was assassinated.
Our team did such a great job today talking to people. But I think one thing that stuck out is so many people had experience
the community impact.
Yeah, like it just shows you that you're so involved in this community. Just a great
touched so many lives across so many generations. We'll tell their stories. Good night. Thanks for joining us.